one of the good books that are available to explain something of the Salafi manhaj or the Salafi methodology is a book which was written by one of my teachers when I studied in Medina University. I studied with Imam Muhammad Nasiruddin Al-Albani. I studied with him for some 4 years whilst I was in Medina. I also studied under one of his leading students, Sheikh Muqbil Al-Hadi. I studied takhrij of hadith in his home. He was a personal friend. However, this book, in the fact that it has a good explanation, actually taken from some of the lectures of Sheikh Nasiruddin, it also leaves out other elements from the Salafi manhaj, which for many people who have gone to extremes, they deliberately oppose. So for example, Sheikh Nasiruddin spoke very strongly against Hajr, that is abandonment, where we abandon the believers. We don't have anything to do with them. We won't shake their hands, give salams to them. If they walk on one side of the road, we go and walk on the other side of the road. You know, this practice Sheikh Nasiruddin was vehemently opposed to, gave lectures against. One of his lectures, which was advice to the brothers in the Emirates, I translated it and put it up on my website, bilalphillips.com, just to help people understand that this attitude and this approach was not really from the manhaj of the Salaf. Now Hajr, abandonment, this is valid where you're dealing with clear deviance. We're dealing with others who are calling to a way completely different from that of the Salaf. Not for somebody who you feel has deviated in a particular issue. He has taken a position different from your position. So now you're going to treat him as if he or she is an open deviant, an enemy of the ummah. No, this is not the way. And Sheikh Nasiruddin spoke very strongly against it, saying that that will only isolate yourselves. You can't reach those who have made mistakes in that way. Instead, you should keep them within the fold and work with them and help to try to correct these things. This is the proper way to deal with it, as the earlier generations did. So we have to be conscious of this actually deviant practice. This is a deviation from the methodology of the way of the early generations of leading scholars. That practice found commonly on the website Salafi Publications and TROID. These are the main two extreme websites which call to this hatred of du'at, leading scholars and Islamic workers who are working for the sake of Islam, who openly say that they're following the way of the Salaf. Maybe they have some mistakes here or there, but who have been attacked, come under full attack by these sites. Now the sites contain good material, just like the book which I showed you, produced actually by TROID. It has good material, but there is a basic dishonesty in their methodology, in that they will take from the scholars what agrees with them, and they will ignore what doesn't. This is a deviant way. If we want to present the position of the scholars, present both sides, so people can see and hear what their opinions were on these other issues, even though you don't agree with it. That is the correct way. And when you read the books of the early scholars, you see that's what they did. They will mention the positions, the positions held by the earlier scholars, and they would show both sides. But today, where a scholar, for example, is conceived of having made a mistake, to mention the good that he has done, this is labeled muwazana. They are a name. This extreme group has put this particular name to indicate a form of deviation, that anybody who has been declared off this manhaj, who has deviated from it, now you should never mention any good about him. They say this is like speaking about the good which Satan did. Well, okay, yeah, Satan, okay, Satan is an open enemy to us. Allah says he's an open enemy. Take him as your enemy. There is no point in talking about the good of Satan, except, for example, if we talk about the hadith of Abu Huraira and the zakah, where Satan does tell Abu Huraira something true and good, which the Prophet ﷺ affirmed. So that was some good. You still have to mention it because it's part of learning about Ayatul Kursi and its benefits, etc. Satan told it to Abu Huraira, and the Prophet ﷺ affirmed it. But we don't go around saying, actually Satan has a good side because he did this good and so on. So, oh yeah, we can agree. Clear. Why? Because Satan was, basically relative to us now 90% evil. Maybe there was a 10% good. No point in talking about the 10% good. But where you have a scholar who has 10% made a mistake, but 90% he's good, to talk about his good simply because he has mistaken in that 10%, this is evil. This is an evil way. And as a result of it, we see that the lists of scholars amongst these groups, TROID and Salafi publications, and those who follow their manhaj, the list, if you go back 15 years, was a big list of all of the major scholars. Then you see after 5 years passes, the list got shorter. Another 5 years, it gets shorter. Another 5 years, it gets shorter, till it's now only down to a couple of scholars. Scholars who they have, maybe minor scholars who they have elevated to the status of, the kibarul ulama, the great scholars. But in fact, there are many great scholars there who they just are quiet about, because these great scholars don't agree with their methodology. So you'll find people like Abdul Muhsin Al-Abbad, who was also one of my teachers and who signed my BA in Islamic Studies from Medina University, from the College of Usul ad-Din, signed it with the title Sheikh Abu Amina Bilal Phillips, and he signed it, and this is available for anyone who needs to see it. Because of course, I'm not going out trying to say, well, I'm a sheikh and so on, so, but that was the label which was given to the graduates of Medina and continues to be given. So those people who have no knowledge, it isn't in their place to say, so-and-so is not a sheikh. If the university has given him that title, who are you to say that he is not? He may not be a great sheikh, he may not be among the leading sheikhs, etc., but still, that title is still appropriate. He is also a seeker of knowledge at the same time. But if he has gone through the formal studies, etc., then that recognition should be given. One should not hesitate about it. But unfortunately, you have individuals who have studied nowhere, who have no scholarship behind them, maybe struggling to even pronounce the verses of the Quran. And they have elevated themselves in their own circles, and they're now being called sheikh. And then these other individuals who in fact have all the qualifications, have all the learning, are involved in teaching the ummah, these people are now labeled as deviant so-and-so and deviant so-and-so. No way you can give them the title sheikh. No, you cannot call him a scholar of any kind, he's deviant. So this is the methodology of the deviants, in order to cut people off from real knowledge, because those that are being cut off from this circle are those who hold the position, the moderate position, the position of the early generation, which is tolerant to differences of opinions, tolerant to people's mistakes, recognizing their mistakes, and at the same time still being able to work with them. These are the people who are cut off, from the masses are cut off, so that they can only turn now to individuals who are in fact ignorant, who have no scholarship behind them. And so what is going to happen? They become further misguided. And this is very, very unfortunate. So what is a common practice amongst them is known as tabdi'. Anybody who doesn't hold their opinion, they immediately label them as mubtadi'. They're innovators. And these titles are used in a manner which, Allah knows best. People will have to pay a great consequence in the life to come, if not in this life. Because this attitude of labeling people's deviants, and this is a very, very serious label, when in fact they are not, this is a great misjustice and injustice done against those who are struggling to teach Islam to the masses. So, brothers and sisters, one of the ways and the positions held by this manhaj al-Salaf, which is correct position, is that we don't call to revolt against the rulers. That those who revolted in the past, they created more chaos than any good that they sought to do. It doesn't mean that we accept all evil that may come from rulers. We should oppose it, but oppose it in a way which is not going to create chaos in the society. There are legal channels that this can be dealt with. We use the legal channels that are available to us. Otherwise, we're patient. And this was the way of the early generation. Not to say that there were not some from the early generation who did revolt, like Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and others, Ash-Sha'bi, others from the Tabi'een, etc., who did revolt. They did join revolts. But we don't take those exceptions who did that as the rule and say, well, that was the way. No, there were exceptions and they were mistaken. And those who did join revolts ended up being killed and bloodshed, and what they sought to achieve was not achieved. That's the reality. That's what history has shown us. We cannot deny that some of the early respected scholars did join revolts against oppressive, tyrannical rulers. But others among them, who represented the majority, people like Al-Hasan al-Basri, when people came to him in Basra asking him to support and to join in the revolt against Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who was massacring Muslims left and right, killing the Sahaba and all this, firing rocks on the Kaaba, breaking down the Kaaba. This man was a tyrant. But Al-Hasan advised them to be patient. They didn't have the means, they didn't have to resist this man, so to revolt against him was to bring bloodshed. They didn't take his advice, they revolted, and they were all massacred. But this was Al-Hasan al-Basri, known to be amongst the great Tabi'een, and many others like him took that position. When Hussein ibn Ali wanted to go out and join the people of Kufa, the people of Medina, the scholars of Medina, his relatives and the other Sahaba advised him, don't do it. Don't. Better for you to stay here. Don't trust these people. What you're being drawn into is chaos, harm. However, he made the decision and went and was killed. So that happened, that's history. But we learn from the mistake. We don't say, well, because he did it, we should do it, or we can do it. So this again is among the issues of that manhaj, which the proper approach to understanding the Quran and Sunnah ascribes itself to. And this is what I personally ascribe myself to. There are people who say, Bilal Phillips, he's a deviant. He's not a Salafi. He doesn't call himself a Salafi. Well, I am a Salafi. I do call myself a Salafi. I may not on every occasion that I go to say, first and foremost, everybody know I am a Salafi. No, not necessarily, because some occasions I go into communities where people, what they know of Salafiyah is harshness, bad behavior, abandonment of people. So their whole image of Salafiyah is negative. So for me to go and say, listen, you all, I'm a Salafi, here's what I have to say. Once I said Salafi, their ear is closed. So what is the point? What is the value? Instead, I explain to them that Islam is the Quran and the Sunnah as understood by the early generations, which is explaining Salafiyah in words without using the single term. So don't feel, it is incorrect for you to feel that simply because a person doesn't walk around with a badge saying, I am a Salafi, that they're not Salafi. In fact, when we talk to most Muslims, explain to them what this means, most Muslims will say, yeah, I agree with that. That makes sense. I'm one, you know. But they may still have issues in their overall beliefs, etc., but they subscribe to it. So we should not be quick to cut people off the manhaj, you know, label the mass of Muslims deviants, etc. No. If the knowledge has not come to them, because remember the verse said, وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى. Whoever opposes the messenger after the knowledge, clear knowledge has been made available to him, that is the condition. A person hasn't had clear knowledge brought to him. So how do we judge him? How do we deal with him? We have to deal with him as a brother or sister Muslim who needs to be educated. And we educate them. That is the way, in a loving way. They are our brothers and sisters. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. The believers are one brotherhood. So what are you saying when you don't want to have anything to do with them? They're not believers? So they're not a part of the brotherhood? No, this is wrong. This is not the way. The correct way is for Muslims to maintain the unity of the ummah, to correct the mistakes within themselves, to be patient with other people, to have other opinions and other preferences. But our job is to make the message clear to them. Just as our da'wah to non-Muslims is a da'wah of guidance, we provide information for them, but we can't make them accept. As Allah said, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ. Indeed, what is on you is the conveyance of the message, and I will take people to account. That is Allah's responsibility. So let us, brothers and sisters, understand Islam in its original purity. The understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah as it was understood by those early generations, the Salaf. To try to apply Islam today in accordance with that understanding. And within that understanding is tolerance, flexibility, love, a brotherhood which kept the early Muslims together for the sake of Allah. And with that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with me on this program, sharing this thought, and I hope that Allah will guide myself and yourself to that straight path and keep us on it until we leave this world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.